So, cost inflation, I guess, is what keeps most of our industry leaders very worried. Now, cost inflation has been there for the last year and had largely been driven by oil prices. So many of our carbon pitch, coke prices had gone up. And though that cost inflation is on a trending basis, not going up that much anymore. But the coal prices in India in the last 6 months have really gone up, especially the auction. And that's largely because of a supply-demand gap that has emerged, which I think everybody in the country knows about. So for us, the availability of coal and the pricing of coal has become probably the biggest worry that we have from a cost point of view.
But Satish, help us quantify the impact of it. What kind of impact will it have on the margins? And do you expect this coal crisis to remain sticky for the next 3 to 6 months at least, or do you expect it to ease out?
So I think that, we are going into the monsoon quarter. So to be realistic, both Q1 and Q2 is going to be, to use your word, sticky. But how much of it is going to impact our pricing? Well, our Q4 pricing cost was about 10% higher than Q3. And we are expecting another double-digit cost increase Q1 to Q4. So that's the order of magnitude of cost inflation that we are seeing.
Okay, so that's the cost inflation as far as the coal prices is concerned. But let me talk to you about aluminium prices itself. Now, we have seen that they are off by around 30% from the highest point that we had seen as far as the aluminium prices go. Should we expect that the peak of the prices is behind us and going forward the prices should cool down further?
So, first, my point is it was not a peak but a spike. And there's a slight difference between the two terms. It was a spike because when the war broke out, people worried about Rusal aluminium and the aluminium spiked to about 3,600. But on an absolute level, currently it's running at 2,850. I feel that it's going to be stable around the 3,000 going forward. And why do I say that? Because supply and demand continues to be extremely tight. The demand for aluminium driven by electrification, sustainability angle is very strong. And the supply, there is no real new supply coming in anywhere. So I think that once these fears on the economic situation in China and all start to come sort of appease a bit, then you're going to find aluminium staying pretty firm around the 3,000s for the rest of the year.
Okay, so prices to remain firm around that 3,000 mark. But talk to us about demand a bit more. In terms of the various segment, how's the demand from the auto sector, the cans business, the specialty segment? If you can throw some more light around that.
Yeah, so let me tell you on all our sectors, the can is extremely strong. I mean, we cannot meet the customer requirements. That's why we announced a big $2.5 billion greenfield project in the US. The specialties demand is also extremely strong, whether it is the housing and construction sector or the industrial sector, very strong demand, especially in the US. You go to aerospace. Aerospace has bounced back amazingly. It has now come back to the sort of pre-COVID levels because airlines are starting plane deliveries again. So aerospace has come back. The only sector that is still a little bit anemic is the auto sector. And that's actually driven not from a demand perspective, but because of semiconductor chip shortage. So that's the sort of overview of all the four sectors that we play in.
Sure, but since you have the ear to the ground, Satish, could you help us clarify how is that semiconductor situation actually panning out for auto companies? Is there a slight uptick in demand, or as of now you don't see much change on the ground?
So the supply of semiconductors, because this now it's about 1 year old, most of the industry participants expect that this year will probably be a year that is still affected, but by let's say Q4 of this year, which is the sort of Q1 calendar year 23, most of the auto companies expect that this issue will get more or less sorted out.
Okay, so that's the word coming in from the management at Hindalco. They expect that aluminium prices will remain firm around that $3,000 to the ton mark, but it is the coal prices escalation which is worrying them at this point of time, and that is likely to impact costs by 10 to 15% in the coming quarters.